Class 195 on the Golden Doves, page 116. We were talking about the spaces between the letters, which are necessary and essential to writing in Hebrew thinking, right? And Sefer Torah has to have a space between each one of the letters, so it has to be white parchment between each letter. And we said Jorge Luis Borges also includes blank space in his definition of writing. That's, I believe, in Ficciones in the Library of Babel, which, by the way, is a great story. The whiteness of the parchment between the letters is what contains and in effect gives expression to the golden doves. So you remember one of the explanations in Shir HaShirim Rabbah is that the golden doves refers to the letters of the Sefer Torah, and the silver dot is a shiltut. So the whiteness of the parchment, the space between the letters, is what gives expression to the golden doves or the writing, right? How so? Why do you need a blank space, right? So with Derrida, this concurs with the essential deferring process, because when you write, writing is based not just based upon differences between the words, but there is also a deferral in the sense of you have to stop. What does the word would mean here, right? So the word would, I can understand it. I'm sorry, let me do it another way. What does the word tree mean here? So the word tree, I can understand it. I have to defer my thought because I'm going to connect it with another word, tree of life, for example. So there a tree is in the physical tree. Or it could be a wooden tree. So I see the word wood. I'm going back to the original example. It could be wood. Is it a wooden table? Or no, it's a tree, right? The wood of the fill in the blank, the table, or the wood of the tree. So you see there's a certain deferral in the way you understand language. And Derrida refers to the instability of language and the instability of meaning, because it could later on be the wooden tree in the forest, right? Or it could be the wooden tree being chopped in the lumberyard, right? So you see there's a further deferral of what the word tree means, and there's a constant chain of deferral of meaning. So for that you need a white space, because a white space is stop. You don't really know what this means till you go to the next thing, and then you need to connect and to connect and to connect. I believe there's something that Derrida says, and I just have to say this, just because Derrida says theories of language that we agree with, we certainly don't agree with Derrida's ideas in terms of the political sphere of Marxism or neo-Marxism, which are just absolutely abhorrent, in my opinion, and based on my understanding of history, what happened with the Marxists and what these ideas lead to. But his theories in linguistics are quite compelling. So, I can learn from certain things from Aristotle. I can learn certain things from Plato. I can learn certain things from Jacques Derrida. Doesn't mean that I accept postmodernist theory in its application to modern society. Okay, I just have to put it out there. Let me see, footnote 116. I'm sorry, not footnote 116. Page 116. There is the footnotes. Right, so here in footnote 11, this spacing, this is Jacques Derrida, this spacing is not the simple negativity of a lacuna. So the reason you need spaces, as per Jorge Luis Borges, is not just because we have emptiness and there's nothing there. No, but rather the emergence of the mark. Every space allows for a further pointing out of signification, and eventually it becomes a mark, right? So it allows for, and then you have further signification and then further signification, right? And that's why he says here back in the main text, this deferral is not simply a denial of absolute presence. It's not there's something there. It's not emptiness in the sense of nothing. It's emptiness, but it's not nothingness. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. Rather, it is the structuring of presence in successive terms. So it's only in successive terms that you can have presence. right? Because that's only at the end of the sentence that you have the full meaning of the words. Hence, instability of language is each word by itself, but the blank spaces allows for presence of meaning in the successive or temporal axis. Simultaneous knowledge excludes the possibility of an unending progress of knowledge, right? So the minute you have this, Platonic ideas or some of the pseudo-Kabbalistic ideas, which is just, they're just there, right? And you've discovered it. You discovered the truth. But then there's no progress possible, right? That's metaphysical truth. Because presence is never simultaneously, but always successively structured, knowledge, truth, etc., can never be totally grasped, right? Because there's always a succession, and succession goes on into eternity. So knowledge, always Jewish knowledge, always allows for the possibility of progress. Greek, pseudo-Kabbalistic, black hat today, they're actually but much of the rabbinic establishment today is at a low level, so to even compare them to that is mistaken. But the point is, true knowledge is a successive knowledge, as opposed to I discovered the truth and that's it. Star Trek. I've been in the presence of the light and that's it. I discovered the truth. No, it's Jewish knowledge. It always requires that blank space, which leads to another black signification, which leads to another blank white space. And there's always further and further and further intellectual understanding. So there's progress. The notion of intellectual humility permeating the Hebrew scriptures and rabbinic tradition reflects the belief that knowledge can never be ultimate, that eternity ought not to be conceived in simultaneous terms. That's great, by the way. That really is a great point. Let me see there's a footnote here that I want to read. Okay. Continuing. It is worth noting that silence or interruption is both possible and necessary only within the realm of successivity, of course, right? It's because it's only as you go forward in the temporal that you can stop and wait, and then continue, and then wait, and then continue, right? It is a peculiar trait of the Hebrew God not only to speak, but also to be silent. So sometimes people say, where was Hashem? Why didn't Hashem communicate? Sometimes the silence itself allows for the emergence of the previous message. So that silence allows us to understand the previous message, right? This idea was, I think Elie Wiesel wrote a book called Night. I believe, and he was a great writer, I believe the idea of night was where, the sense of darkness, where was God, right? I believe that's what he meant, to my humble knowledge, not that I'm an expert in Elie Wiesel, right? This idea was expressed quite eloquently by Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, who wrote, I reveal and then hide me, right? I anger, in the biblical sense of interruption, and then respond, right? The same applies to the Hebrew people. As the participants in the divine dialogue, not only did they sing the wonders of the Lord, but they also had the faculty of keeping their peace, of remaining speechless. So, for example, Az Yashir Moshe Bnei Israel et Hashira Hazot. But then there are times for silence. It is precisely this speechlessness which, like blank spacing in writing, contains and gives expression to speech, right? And it's a notion which I find to be morally, just intellectually repugnant, not morally repugnant. Let's storm the heavens with our prayers. Storm, like we're a group of barbarians, storming the arena. God must answer that if we storm the heavens. I mean, other than the bankrupt conception of God that implies. What is he, some sports figure, or what are we? I mean, the whole concept is just intellectually bankrupt in the extreme. But also, perhaps there comes a time where we need to be silent, right? There comes a time where maybe we need to just understand that we can't understand, and therefore accept the presence of the silence, because that presence will lead to the emergence of knowledge. Yeah. Whereas other people claiming to be the recipients of prophecy kept speaking continuously. They don't know. Some people don't know how to shut up, which is oftentimes a sign of, well, unable to hold their peace. Israel alone is capable of silence. It is precisely the speechlessness which, like blank spacing in writing, contains and gives expression to speech. Indeed, the Zohar, a work which tradition associates with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and which modern scholars attribute to Moshe de Leon. My father didn't want to express his opinion in this regard because it's marginal to what he's dealing with. Declared in the name of Rabbi Elazar, my silence built a sanctuary above and a sanctuary below. Truly, it is commonly said, if a word is worth 1 coin, then silence is worth 2. That's great. Yeah, and that's from the Gemara. That specific comment or epigram. If a word is worth 1 coin, then silence is worth 2. A word is worth 1 coin. This is what I spoke, and when I inspired. This is how the Zohar explaining that epigram, right? Then silence is worth 2. This applies to my silence, by which were created and built 2 worlds at once. So the silence of God is itself an active silence. Looking at footnote 17, Rabbi Yosef Ya'abes Hasdeh Amonai cites a rabbinic passage that says the reward for suffering is given in regards to silence on the relation of, okay. All right, so we'll stop here.